This week, President Putin said that Russia would not hesitate to use, and I quote, all weapon systems available, end quote, in response to a threat to its territorial integrity. A threat that is all the more menacing, given Russia's intention to annex large swaths of Ukraine in the days ahead.
This is my first video update coming to you from downtown Nicosia, Cyprus. On this Friday morning, you saw the opening video segment. That was Anthony Blinken speaking at the United Nations General Assembly meeting, and he was talking about Russia and nuclear weapons in reference to Putin's speech that he gave a couple of days ago, announcing the partial mobilization. And the collective West, they have really jumped on that one short segment of that 14-minute speech where Putin said pretty much, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that if the collective West decides to attack Russia, then we have the right to retaliate. And we have the weapon systems to retaliate and to defend ourselves. That was pretty much what Putin said. And he said, this is not a bluff. And the collective West, they've jumped on that to spin the narrative that Putin has threatened the world with nuclear war. And the interesting part about that speech from Blinken was not so much what Blinken said. Blinken is just, he's parroting a script that all collective West leaders have now been handed with regards to Putin's speech on partial mobilization. The interesting part about that UN speech from Anthony Blinken was who was sitting behind him? Victoria Nuland. She was sitting right behind Blinken. And when I saw Blinken speaking, I thought to myself, that's who's really running the show right there. Yeah, he's the one that's talking, but the person that's really holding the strings, the real puppeteer, the real puppet master, that's Victoria Nuland right there, right behind him. So I thought that was an interesting segment, and I put that into this video, not so much for what Blinken was saying, but I thought it was interesting to see Victoria Nuland just sitting right back there as Blinken continues to escalate the situation. So let's and on the subject of nuclear weapons, before I get into what Lavrov said during his speech, which is a lot more interesting than what Blinken said, with regards to this whole nuclear weapons narrative. 2 weeks before the special military operation at the Munich Security Council, Zelensky was running around Munich in attendance. Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, Ursula von der Leyen, Olaf Scholz, Annalena Baerbock, all these people were at the Munich Security Council event. This was like February 14th. And Zelensky was running around that entire event. And he was going around Munich saying, we're going to get nukes. We're going to get them. We're going to get nuclear weapons, and we're going to hit Russia. We're going to get them. We're going to get them, everybody. Ukraine is going to get nukes. No one stopped them. No one in attendance at that Security Council event said, this guy's crazy. No one told Zelensky, yo, dude, shut the hell up. Stop talking this nonsense. No one called for a press conference and said, don't listen to this guy. Ukraine's never, ever going to get nuclear weapons. That should have been what Kamala Harris, as Vice President of the United States, that should have been her first reaction to Zelensky running around saying that Ukraine's going to get nukes. She should have called a press conference, and she should have said, look, as the United States of America, there is no way ever, ever, ever that Ukraine is going to get nuclear weapons. But no one said anything, and they let Zelensky run around Germany and talk up the fact that Ukraine is going to get nukes. In April, You had the real leader of Poland. I think he was the deputy prime minister at the time, or the deputy president, something like that. But he's the real leader of Poland, Kaczynski. He was talking about how Poland should get nuclear weapons, that the United States should put nukes on Polish territory. In June, you had Radoslav Sikorski. He's the guy that's married to Anne Applebaum, super duper high level neocon Anne Applebaum. And Sikorski, who was, interestingly enough, I think now he's actually an EU parliament member, but in 2014, he was one of the architects, along with John McCain, of the Maidan coup. He was the foreign minister of Poland, and he was one of the guys that traveled to Kiev, and he pushed for the regime change and the coup and the Maidan. So this guy, in June, he was talking about how Ukraine should get nuclear weapons. I mean, these are statements that all these people have made. And just 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, Liz Truss was giving a town hall before she became prime minister. And she was asked if she's ready to press the red button and to launch nukes. And what did Liz Truss say? Yeah, I'll press that red button. And then the moderator of the town hall asked her again. He said, Ms. Truss, are you sure? Are you sure that you understand what that means if you press that red button and launch nuclear weapons at our enemies? I mean, they didn't name names, but everyone understood who they were talking about. Everyone understood it was Russia. And Liz Truss was like, so the moderator was like, you do understand the gravity of such a decision. And Liz Truss was like, no, give me that red button. Where's that red button? Give me that red button. I want to press that red button. That was Liz Truss. That was like 2-3 weeks ago. And the crowd was clapping. There was applause. Yeah, give her that red button. Have her press that red button. So this whole nuclear thing is just complete media spin. That is all it is. I mean, dangerous, extremely dangerous. But the whole, Putin is going to launch nuclear weapons. That's what I mean is media spin, because for the past 6 months, the only thing we have been hearing from the collective West is how they can win a nuclear war with Russia, and perhaps Ukraine should get nukes, and perhaps a tactical nuclear strike on Russia would discourage Putin. That's all we've been hearing for 6 months from the collective West. And then when Putin says, well, we can retaliate if you attack us, they all jump on it then. They all jump on, oh my God, Putin's going to launch these weapons and all of this stuff. It's okay for them to do it and to talk about it. Perfectly okay. But when Russia even mentions it, well then, that's it. They all go into panic mode. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because this whole narrative that the collective West hasn't been talking about the dangers of these weapons and the dangers of escalation with nuclear weapons is complete fiction. Complete fiction. 3 weeks ago, Liz Truss, 2-3 weeks ago, that's what she was talking about. Anyway, the UN meeting, the UN speeches, Lavrov. So Lavrov gave his speech at the United Nations. Now, there was some talk that when, I think it was the UK foreign minister, the UK representative at the UN, and I could be wrong, but I think when he was speaking, there are reports from The Guardian and from the Daily Mail that Lavrov walked out, and like the UK foreign minister was like, you see, you don't want to listen to the truth. You can't handle the truth, that kind of, theatrics. I don't know if Lavrov walked out because he didn't want to listen to the UK's nonsense or if he just had other stuff to do, but the UK media is playing it up like their representative. And I think it was the UK. It could have been another country, but they were playing it up like their representative or our representative was just dropping facts, and Lavrov just couldn't handle the facts. I haven't really looked into the story, to be honest, because this has just become so routine now. If Lavrov decides to get up and go to the bathroom. Then you have someone at the UN, some representative saying, you see, he's walking out. And Lavrov is like, dude, I'm just going to go use the toilet. They jump on that stuff and they make a big deal about it. Anyway, Lavrov said a lot of interesting things during his speech, and let me pull up some of his quotes here. One of his quotes was really, I also haven't been able to find the exact context of it as to what he meant by it, but he said with regards to Zelensky, as he was describing the attitude of the collective West towards Zelensky at a meeting of the UN Security Council, Lavrov said that there was this quote, he's a son of a bitch, sure, but he's our son of a bitch. And I guess Lavrov meant that this is what, I imagine, this is what the collective West Security Council members were saying about Zelensky. In other words, he's our puppet. We know he's a puppet, but he's our puppet. Anyway, I'm not 100% confident on the context of that quote, but it is one of the more popular quotes that's floating around from Lavrov's attendance at the UN. So Lavrov was talking about the referendums in Donbass, Zaporozhye, Kherson regions, and he said that they're a response to Zelensky's call for Russians to leave Ukraine. 100% true. 100% true. Zelensky's been going off about how Russians should leave Ukraine. All Russian speakers, all Russian sympathizers, they should leave Ukraine. And well, you're getting your wish. That's what Lavrov means. He said the attitude of those countries that pump up Ukraine with weapons and military equipment, training the personnel of the armed forces of the country in particular, is particularly cynical. The goal is obvious. They do not hide it and proclaim it. That was one of the more popular quotes from Lavrov. He said, to prolong the hostilities as much as possible, despite the casualties and destruction, in order to separate and weaken Russia. Such a line means the direct involvement of Western countries in the Ukrainian conflict, making them a party to it, and the deliberate fomenting of this conflict by the collective West also goes unpunished. Well, indeed, you gentlemen will not punish yourselves. Another interesting quote from Lavrov. And he also said, we have no illusions that today the armed forces of Russia and the militias of the DPR and LNR are opposed not only by the neo-NAZI formations of the Kiev regime, but also by the military machine of the collective West. And in real time, using planes, ships, satellites, NATO provides intelligence to the armed forces of Ukraine and encourages them to punish Russia by defeating it on the battlefield and stripping it of all sovereignty. This is no longer latent racism, but the most sincere. So Lavrov was on fire at the UN. He was on fire at the UN, and check out some of the videos of his speech during the UN, and he didn't hold back at all. He basically reiterated what Putin and Shoigu stated during their statements the other day, which is that we're under no illusions. Russia is under no illusions. We understand that we're no longer in conflict with Ukraine, and we are at war with NATO and the collective West. We understand it, we know it, and we're taking the necessary measures to deal with it. And we understand that Zelensky is a puppet, and he's your puppet. So that was pretty much Lavrov's speech there. And I like the line where he said, of course you can't punish yourselves. He understands that. He's like saying, you guys need to be punished, but And the UN needs to punish all of you, but you guys can't punish yourselves. So that was Lavrov during the UN meeting. And Macron, he gave an interview the other day. And Macron is probably the best of the bunch. When it comes to the collective West guys, Macron has turned out to be he's devious and sinister, but he's turned out to be the least devious and sinister and belligerent guy of the bunch. I mean, he's two-faced, but at least every now and then he says some things which make sense. So he gave a radio interview the other day and a TV interview the other day, and he said that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine will only end at the negotiating table. He also called for a negotiated peace between the neighbors. This was during a TV interview with BFM TV. And speaking on the Western role in the conflict in Ukraine, Macron insisted that our duty is to hold our line. Macron insisted that our duty is to hold our line, and that line, according to him, is helping Kiev to protect its territory and never to attack Russia. Quote, "We are not at war with Russia," the French president assured. So Macron is doubling down on the narrative that our duty as Europe is to give Ukraine the necessary weapons and money so that it can protect itself, but we're not at war with Russia. That's the line that they're going with now. We're not at war with Russia. That's coming from Macron. The prisoner swap. That was a big swap. I talked about it yesterday, very, very early, before we got more details with regards to that prisoner swap. But hundreds of prisoners were exchanged. And from what I understand, this wasn't a very popular deal with the Russian public. They weren't so happy about the prisoner exchange. But Viktor Medvedchuk, who was jailed by Zelensky, he was released, the main opposition leader. So that was an interesting development. You have the news about the Azov guys and the commanders who are going to be in Turkey. That was another interesting detail with regards to the prison swap. And of course, the big story with regards to this swap was the involvement of Turkey and Saudi Arabia. And I think that's the key to understanding why this prisoner swap went through. This was probably in the works for a while. I'm sure there was a lot of negotiations that took place over a long period of time. And I'm sure all parties involved, especially Turkey and Saudi Arabia, they got something out of this. We don't know what it is, but there's no doubt that they're going to be getting something out of this, or they got something out of this entire deal. And Russia and Putin, for Russia's part, Ukraine as well. But speaking on Russia's part, I'm positive that the Kremlin wants to keep Turkey and Saudi Arabia on side. And they welcome the fact that Turkey and Saudi Arabia wanted to get involved, because it speaks to the narrative that these countries, which were once seen as 100% Western oriented, are now organizing prisoner swaps for this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Once upon a time, stuff like this would have been done by, like these prisoner exchanges would have been negotiated by countries like Canada, Western countries. Once upon a time, that would have been the normal. But now you have Turkey and Saudi Arabia. They're the ones that are organizing these types of prisoner exchanges. Everything is changing, isn't it? Everything is changing. And Saudi Arabia and Turkey, you know, they're players now. To me, that's what this negotiation represents on a very basic level. It represents the fact that it shows that MBS and Erdogan, they're playing with the big boys, you know? They're in the middle of everything. They're the ones that are on the world stage right now. And a year, 2 years ago, MBS was a pariah because of the Khashoggi stuff, and Erdogan was a dictator, and he had his own problems. And now look at them. They're negotiating prisoner exchanges. Big news, big stuff there going on. And we did a live stream with Garland Nixon on the Duran. And towards the last 10 minutes of that live stream, definitely check it out. Garland makes a really interesting point in reference to the prisoner swap. And Brian at the New Atlas, he highlighted the point that Garland made with regards to the prisoner exchange. And let me just read you Brian's post on Telegram. If you're not subscribed to the New Atlas Telegram channel, definitely check it out. It's a fantastic Telegram channel. But I think that Brian does a good job in crystallizing what Garland said with regards to the prisoner swap. So let me read that to you. Duran hosts, great guest, Garland Nixon. On Ukraine, Russia, he made a particularly interesting point regarding prisoner exchanges. They prove to Ukraine your life isn't over when you surrender. Next phase of Russian ops will likely include many Ukrainians facing a choice to fight on or surrender. This act of mercy might serve to have them pick the latter sooner and in greater numbers. That's a fantastic point made by Garland Nixon, and thank you to Brian for isolating that point and crystallizing it in this Telegram post. What's going on in Ukraine is the referendum begins today, the 23rd, all the way till the 27th for some regions. So they're going to be voting to join the Russian Federation. I think that we all know what to expect with the results of that vote. And what we're seeing from the Zelensky regime is that they're resorting to real terrorist tactics. They bombed markets in Melitopol, civilian markets. They bombed markets in Donetsk. The last I read, six or seven civilians died, including children, and they're doing this in order to somehow frighten or discourage people from taking part in these referendums. And we had an official in Zaporozhye come out with a statement saying that, Zaporozhye, all of Zaporozhye, is going to be voting to joining the Russian Federation. And so the part of Zaporozhye that is now currently under Ukrainian control, once the referendum ends, and if it goes as we expect it to go, and Zaporozhye does enter the Russian Federation, well then we will consider the part of Zaporozhye which is under Ukrainian control to be occupied territory. How's that for an interesting turn of events, an interesting twist right there? Zelensky, before I get to my clown world, Ukraine, not even Zelensky, this predates Zelensky. Ukraine, in 2015, all they had to do was recognize Crimea as being a part of Russia, and then just follow the Minsk Accords. The Minsk Accords that France and Germany are a signatory to. France and Germany signed that contract. They co-signed the Minsk Accords. What happens in real life when you go to a bank and you get a loan and you sign for that loan and you also have a co-signer? What happens if you don't honor that contract or don't honor the terms of that loan? What does the bank do? So back in 2005, all Ukraine had to do was say that it's neutral, follow the Minsk Accords, recognize Russian as an official language. In Cyprus, Greek is an official language, as is Turkish. That's all you had to do, was recognize Russian culture, the Russian language, as being part of Ukraine. Say that you're neutral, recognize Crimea as being part of Russia, and then you would have had Donetsk and Lugansk returned back to Ukraine. And Ukraine would have been kind of a federated states of Ukraine in a way, because Donetsk and Lugansk would have been kind of autonomous republics, like states in the United States. And that would have been the trajectory of Ukraine. Ukraine would have moved towards a more federal structure, a bunch of states under a federal government. And those states would have had certain states' rights, right? They would have had a certain degree of autonomy, but it would have been a federal government of Ukraine. That's all that had to happen. And all that the collective West had to do, specifically France and Germany, was to just tell Poroshenko at the time to just follow the Minsk Accords, man. Just follow it, Porky Poroshenko, chocolate king of Ukraine, who was at that time the president. But nope, they couldn't do it. And so where are you today? Today you have a clown puppet president, a clown puppet leader, who is now losing 4 more regions, 5 regions in total: Crimea, Zaporozhye, Kherson, Donetsk, Lugansk. 5 regions are now being lost. When in 2014, this all could have been settled. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. And Germany and France and the collective West, they are directly to blame for this. They are 100% at fault for this. 100%. They signed that document. They signed the Minsk Accords. We should never forget that. And if they had, if they had honored their documents, if they had honored that signature, none of this would be happening. None of this. In 2015, they would have given up Crimea, but they would have gotten their country back. Now they're losing 4 more regions. Anyway, let's do a clown world. And since we're talking about Zelensky, this was a couple of days ago. And Zelensky, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I've been wanting to say this for a while now. The other day, a couple of days ago, the euro hit the lowest level against the dollar that it's been at since 2002. It hit 98 cents to the dollar, 0.985. That was where the euro was at. Its lowest level since 2002. 2002, I believe that's when Greece actually entered the euro. 2001 or 2002, that's when Greece actually decided to take the euro currency. It's now back at that level. Incredible. Incredible. So Zelensky, he was participating in a Bill Clinton Foundation event. Yep. Zelensky at the Clinton Foundation event, and he was talking to Billy Boy, to Mr. Bill Clinton. And what was Zelensky talking about at this Clinton Foundation event? Well, this is what Zelensky said. He said, "For the entire civilized world, the U.S. is a beacon of democracy. When you give us artillery, other nations give us artillery too. So if the U.S. designates Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, other nations will follow." This is what he told Bill Clinton at the Clinton Foundation event. Clinton Clinton told Zelensky, he said, quote, "Most of us are pretty well connected with our various governments, but also have many non-governmental means to bring help. So please feel free to ask and know that we are pulling for you." That is what Clinton told Zelensky. Zelensky also said, "I would like to see the U.S. to be the first country in the world to sign secure guarantor documents on the security guarantees with Ukraine, to sign those documents on security guarantees with Ukraine." He also said that to Bill Clinton. But the point of this clown world is this. If you have any doubts about Zelensky, well, just understand that he's hanging out at a Bill Clinton Foundation event. I think that tells you everything you need to know with regards to Zelensky and the WEF and globalism and the Clintons and all of the stuff that's going on. I've said it in a bunch of videos. I'll say it again. It's not about Ukraine for all of these people. The Clintons and the Van der Crazies and the Macrons and Schultz, Baerbock and Habeck. It's not about Ukraine. It's what Ukraine symbolizes to them. And Ukraine symbolizes neoliberal globalism. And that is the business of the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation is in the business of neoliberal globalism. That is what Ukraine is. That's why they've gone so crazy with regards to Ukraine. It's because it is the symbol. It was the playground over the past 10 years. Ukraine was the playground for neoliberal globalism. That's where they were all hanging out. That's where they were all making their money. And that is why they're up in arms. And they're willing to take the entire world towards the brink of nuclear war, because this symbolic country is about to become no more. And so that is why you see what you are seeing. But the Clinton Foundation, well, they were in bed with Ukraine for the 2016 elections. Yes, they were in bed with Ukraine for those elections, and they were very, very anti-Trump. The number one donor for the Clinton Foundation actually was Ukraine back in 2016, 2015, 16. And I remember the embassy of Ukraine in Washington and Alexandra Chalupa and all of these characters being very, very much involved in trying to dismantle Trump's campaign and then his presidency. So, the Clinton Foundation, they're very, very close to Ukraine. Very close. Anyway, that is the video, guys. TheDuran.locals.com. Check out Alexander's channel and check out the Duran's channel. Check out that live stream we did with Garland Nixon. I'm signing out. Take care.